Hi everyone, I'm Ferd and welcome to my video. I want to start this one out with one of these old man stories. Back in the mid 70s, I used to work for Kenner Toys, one of my very first jobs. I made $1.31.5 an hour. And one of my first jobs at Kenner's was working on the assembly line, making these Snoopy toothbrushes. Now, my job on the line was to take them little wires you see there and plug them into the motor. And there was only two of them, and they were, from the best of my knowledge and what I'm seeing here, they were red. One was red and one was white. And they gave me instructions, plug the red one here, the white one there, or whatever, and I went at it, and there's seemed like thousands of these things. And that's all I had to do was pull a wire out of this wire harness out of this box, a little motor out of this box, and plug them in, and throw them in and throw them down on the assembly line, and off they went. Well, a couple of days later, this forklift pulls up with a skid load of these boxes, and the foreman was with him, and he's like, you need to take every one of these motors out of these boxes and switch these wires around. You got them on backwards. And I thought, oh my God. So they pulled me off the line, and I spent days pulling these wires apart and switching them around. And what does that have to do with the Ingersoll Rand air compressor that I'm working on? It has to do with quality control. Now, I know today that these things probably would have ran, and maybe not. I don't know. I mean, the way that I had them plugged in, evidently they didn't pass their quality control, and they needed to be fixed. They wasn't going to go out the door like that. Now, today, this day and age that we live in, the quality control isn't there like that. And there's a shitload of electric motors that they're selling for these air compressors today that are complete junk, that would have never passed the standards that people had back in the mid 70s like that. And that's the story. Here's the compressor. Let me show you what I got going on with this thing. Now, behind me here is one of the biggest pieces of junk that you would ever purchase in your life. Ingersoll Rand T4, proudly assembled in the USA in Campbellsville, Kentucky. I'd never be proud of it. This thing is on its fourth or fifth engine or electric motor. This is a brand new one I got up here. I'm getting ready to put another one on here. Two of them were put on by the under a warranty, and then the other three came after the warranty. And they all 4 or 5 of these things were like the same motor. I'll show you a picture of it here in a minute. But anyway, some other than having to put motors constantly on this thing, you constantly have to put these on them too. They this is junk. Here's the model number. It's a TS5, I'm sorry. I don't believe that there's anything on this thing that was actually made in the USA. It's like everything was made overseas in some foreign country somewhere and then proudly assembled in the USA. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put a new switch on it. I'm going to add a magnetic starter. I think I'm going to mount it right here, and I'm going to put that motor on it and see if I can make something out of this piece of junk. Okay, I want to break in here for a minute, and I want you to stick with me and let me share with you what I have found out about this compressor and the problems that we've been having with it. The motors that we've been going through have went through everything with it, and I've determined that there are a bunch of bad motors that they are selling here in the United States to put on these air compressors and other things that might be using them, and just getting rid of them, and at the cost of you. I've just seen where this same motor that you're looking at right here. This is the one that it's actually on the Ingersoll Rand, is used on Campbell House field air compressors, and I'm sure a few other ones. And the thing about it is, I I I kind of knew that I didn't want to put uh, the same motor back on it that keeps burning up. It's sort of like banging your head against the wall over and over again, expecting different results each time you do it, but you know, not getting different results. So I wanted to switch the motor on it, and I'd found one at the Home Depot, this one right here, and it had a different name brand on it. Um, the setup on it was a lot different. Right here, this little box is where the electrical wires are fed into the motor, where you don't have to go into the back side of it and put them in like you do the motor that come off of it. And then and it was my mistake, and I didn't catch it. I don't know why. I was just so frustrated with this thing. We ordered this motor through the Home Depot, and if you look on the video, you'll see the motor they sent that I put on there is this motor right here. This motor is the same motor that I just took off of it with a different sticker on the side of it. Same motor. The base is a little different on it. It's the only difference. So now I'm scared to death that somewhere down the road that I'm going to have to put another motor on this thing. And I'm hoping that this magnetic starter that I'm putting on there will help it live a little bit longer. Because I think I'm past the point of being able to send this motor back and getting it replaced. I was fluked. And but believe me when I know what I'm telling you, that I know what I'm talking about. I mean, hell, I used to wire your Snoopy toothbrush when you were a kid. So let me finish the video. I'm gonna put this magnetic starter on there. It's been on there a few months now, and it's still running fine. It starts up a lot different too. You don't hear any squealing belts or anything like that. It's a smooth startup, and it could quite possibly be the fix for burning up these motors. I seriously doubt it, though. And I don't know why Ingersoll Rand, Campbellsville, Kentucky, didn't put one on it to begin with and just charge you another $100 or whatever. So let's get on with it and put a magnetic starter on this thing. Now, this is the magnetic starter that I'm using on this compressor. It's rated at 34 amps max, and it's for single phase 220 volts for a 5 horsepower motor. You can get these on Amazon, eBay for this one here was like $80, I think. And you can spend upwards of a lot more depending on how much money you want to spend on these. But this one seems to be doing just fine. These instructions are if you've already got existing wire that's been ran from your power source or your breaker box to this switch to run your air compressor. This is what your switch would look like on most compressors, and this one is specifically for the Ingersoll Rand. Now, following my mouse, you can see like a little step here. The top tier is where the power source comes in. The bottom tier is where the power source goes out. Now, this is on both sides. Got 110 volts that should be wired here and here, hot from the breaker box. And when the switch is activated, they come out here at the bottom on both sides. Down at the bottom, these two little green screws are for your ground. Disconnect all your wires, and it's probably better that if you just go ahead and replace this switch with a new one. Our power is going to be connected to the magnetic starter now. On this particular starter, the arrows show you where you want your two power lines to be hooked to. This one here is L1 and L3. Then depending on the magnetic starter that you bought, it could be marked L1 and L2. You want to run the ground to the box. You'll see a little later on the bottom there's a nut and bolt that you can run your ground to. Now, to connect the magnetic starter to the switch, we're going to run a wire from L3 to where the power line originally ran to the switch up there on that top tier. Now, you can use either side of the switch. Just make sure that you use just one side. Also, on the magnetic starter, you can use either leg on L1 or L3. Just use one of them. Coming off of the switch, back to the magnetic starter, below where we connected our power from the switch, follow that yellow arrow, and it goes to a little screw on the top of the switch marked A1. You can connect it there or follow that yellow wire down to the bottom. It's a little harder to get to. It could be connected down there as well. Now, when you're making this connection from that lower tier to the box, heed the warning over here. Whatever you do, don't connect it to L1 or opposite the power source of where you chose to run the other wire. It would be like touching the two together. You'll have sparks flying. You'll burn up the switch and then possibly get electrocuted. So make sure in this step that you don't do that, that this gets connected back here on A1 or on whatever other box that you might be using. Just read those instructions really well and see where that wire gets connected to this magnetic starter. Then you can run a ground from the box to the switch. And in that box, there's that little bolt and nut I was telling you about earlier. Now, what we've done here, following my mouse, we've got 110 volts going to L3, going to the top of the switch. Now, when the switch is activated, you got 110 volts with very little amperage going across to the bottom tier. It goes to A1 on the switch and then activates the switch when this switch is kicked on by low pressure or when you initially turn it on. I mentioned earlier that you could adjust the settings for the amperage on the magnetic starter to a maximum of 34 amps. And ideally, they've got it factory set at around 28. These motors generally run between 20 and 24 amps. So if the motor starts pulling more than that and it goes above that 28, it's going to set off the breaker inside of the magnetic starter. Right here you can see the trip and reset on it. So 28 would be fine. If it's pulling any more amperage than that and it keeps resetting it, then there's probably something going on up into the motor or the back pressure in the compressor or something. You want to check that out. But that's where you can adjust your setting at for this particular magnetic starter. Now when the pressure drops in the tank, it activates the pressure switch then activates magnetic starter, and you'll have power that comes out of these two connections down here. This is where you want to connect your two power lines and ground from the box to the motor. Just look on your motor and the schematics will be there where you make those connections at, and you should be ready to go. Okay, here it is. It's been a long day. I wished I could have gave you more details on everything that I did here, but I'm on somebody else's clock, so it wouldn't be fair to them for me to do something like that. But anyway, I've added a new magnetic starter to it. It's got a new switch. I put a new motor in it. I'm gonna go ahead and change out the oil and the filter up there on it. With the switches wearing out, without the magnetic starter, you got all your amperage going through that little switch and those little contacts that are in there straight to the motor to start it, to where you've just got 120 volts from this switch to the magnetic switch, and the magnetic switch takes the brunt of all the startup power going to the motor. Well, I hope this information was helpful to you. Aside the motor that I ended up with and had to put back on there, I would have been a lot more confident in fixing this air compressor than I am with that motor in particular. But I hope the information as far as what kind of motor to look for and how to hook it up with this magnetic starter helped you. The magnetic starter is important. I honestly believe that that helps prolong the life of any of these motors that you put on these. And like I maybe said before, I don't know why Ingersoll Rand didn't put one on there to begin with. But anyway, thanks for watching the video. I hope you got information out of it that helps you. Hit that like and subscribe button. I got other videos up there, and help me out. Try to make my channel grow a little bit. And thanks for watching again, and have fun.